Alright, really short intro on this video, as this is now part 3 of the Twilight of the Dark Master Kaen Majin series. We have now covered the OVA of Twilight of the Dark Master, which takes place in 2089, the manga source material, which takes place in the distant future of 2019, and the original which spawned it all, Kaen Majin, which takes place in the 1980s. If you want to know what's going on before now, videos covering these are on my channel. Today we'll be covering Onibarai. Volume 1 released in 2012 and Volume 2 released in 2013. These more or less take place around that time, and that leads us to where we are now. This will probably be the newest thing I ever cover on this channel, probably. This is only happening because it's simply something where I'm a man of my word, I said I would do it, and because at this point I just want to give everyone the full experience of the entire saga of the Demon Slayer Tsunami, which I've gotten, so I should share at this point, I think. There is the possibility that later on down the road I will do a theory video on the origins and things behind Tsunami, because, well, actually a couple of things have happened behind the scenes that I don't want to talk about just yet. So, without further ado, if you're new, I give an audiobook-like experience of manga and anime. Graphic content abound. Fasten your seatbelts. We're taking off now. Chapter 1. The Sending Oni. In this world, there are beings known as Oni. Originally, these beings have no form. They slip into the gaps in people's hearts, burrow deep within their minds, and borrow the darkness of their souls to take shape. This is what Oni are. Oni devour humans. Once an Oni eats a human, it can never return to being human again. In this land, there is one called the Oni Slayer. In every era, there is only one Oni Slayer. In every era, there is always one. For a long time now, the same person has carried out the role of the Oni Slayer. He is known as Togen Tsunami. A policeman is driving down the road with his partner. He turns to that same partner and tells him to take a left, and now turns to someone in the back and expresses to them that this is an alternate route that only the locals know about since it isn't mapped onto GPS. The passenger in the rear, a girl with black eyes, only responds with, "Thank you." They pull up to their destination. We see the passenger more fully, a slender girl with black hair and twin tails, and the policemen lead her into the field to a corpse surrounded by buzzing flies. The girl, seemingly having the power of suggestion over others, tells the policemen, who have now taken on a blank expression, that the air conditioner was rattling all night, so they couldn't get any sleep. A cop mustn't get into an accident from falling asleep. She commands them to go back to their car and get some rest. They'll awake to a call from headquarters. As the two officers depart from her, she begins using her powers on the corpse. It's been asleep for some time. It is time to get up. It was brought here by car. The driver was. The corpse continues the sentence. The driver was young. They figured it was probably because of the recession. The girl asked the corpse if it came by taxi, and this is answered with a yes. The last bus had already left, and the driver apologized because the radio wasn't working. He needed to stop to use his phone. Then he opened the door and dragged the victim out. Their face got hot, and they fell asleep. The girl continues her questioning. Did the corpse see the nameplate? It did. Yagami Atsushi, 34 years old. The taxi was most likely privately owned. The twin-tail girl thanks the corpse and apologizes for waking it before then pulling out her phone and calling to a currently unknown person. She states that approximately 40% of the body remains with multiple compound fractures, and relaying that the case is under the Odawara police. As the girl predicted, the two officers are receiving calls in their car and finally awaking. Still possessing that blank expression, they explain to dispatch that they brought out a detective from Odawara Station, and then they are questioned about who and why, but all they can remember is TwinTales. It is said that the Odawara Station of the Kanagawa Prefectural Police has a department that specializes in cases involving Oni. They appear at crime scenes across the country out of nowhere to determine whether or not Oni are involved. There are such investigators entrusted with such a special duty. These investigators wield the power of kotodama, erasing memories of the case and themselves from those involved. Those whose memories have been erased remember only that someone from the Odawara station came, and the sight of TwinTales swaying in the wind. Before long, she became known as the Odawara TwinTales. Her name is known only to the successive chiefs of Odawara Station and Togen Tsunami. An alarm clock sounds, and a man with a bandage on his forehead awakes, calling out for Takuya, but he finds that Takuya is already gone. He checks his fridge and says that he will go for the smoked leftovers, but these have gone bad as well. Out of a newspaper, he pulls a decomposing hand and proceeds to eat. And from this action, from underneath his bandage, a horn erupts, growing rather painfully. We fast forward to the same man, now in a taxi driver's uniform. He's closing the lid on the trunk to his car, which contains a hacksaw and a cooler. A neighbor is asking him if his wife and child are okay, as she hasn't seen them for a while. But with a smile, he tells her that they got sick and went to stay with his wife's family in Kyushu. Fast forwarding again, it's nighttime now, and as the taxi drives down the road, a passenger in the back asks the driver if he's married, before continuing on about how it must be rough with all the competition. But the driver does not respond. The passenger pokes his head up to the front seat to yell at the driver, telling him that talking to customers is part of his job, and addressing him as Yagami, confirming what you may have already suspected, that he is the killer mentioned by the corpse. Yagami turns to the passenger and places his hand on the man's neck, only saying that the night patrols never catch anything worthwhile, and that he twists the man's head in a full 180. He pulls over to the side of the road and removes the body, tossing it over the edge of a guardrail into the forest below. On his way again, he sees a girl clothed in all black in the road. Her garb is long and frilly. From underneath it, white flowing hair emerges, as well as a hand held high to grab the attention of any passerbys. The taxi screeches to a halt, and though the driver questions what she is doing out here, before he knows it, she's in the car and asking to be taken to the nearest station. He concludes that he must have zoned out because he doesn't remember her getting in, but nonetheless agrees to take her where she wants to go. He looks her over, assessing her as a runaway and admiring her skin. He tells her that he's taking an alternate route rather than the main road, as it's faster. The driver begins to ask her questions like, is she from around here and what she's doing out here all by herself? She says, bait, a decoy. And when the driver questions this, she simply says, no, wait, I meant a walk. Carrying on with his routine, Yagami tells the girl that it seems the door isn't fully closed. It may be the trunk, so he's going to stop and check. He goes to the door of the girl and yanks it open, but she isn't there. She appears behind him, asking if the door is fixed, and Yagami decides it is time to reveal what he is, tearing off his cap and exposing his teeth and horn. But he finds that he is grabbing at nothing. The girl is sitting on top of the car behind him now, taunting him. He leaps at her and lands on the cab of his taxi, crushing it in, but the girl is gone once more, now out in the nearby field, beckoning and baiting the Oni to follow her. Yagami finds himself where the corpse was earlier, but now there is only white ash. Something catches his eye. A figure with hair like flames stands parallel to him in the field, and he begins to panic, asking who's there. A very young Tsunami Togen stands out in the field with a smile and asks if Yagami doesn't know who he is. Looks like he was just born. He introduces himself by name and title, Oni Slayer, and the panic within Yagami grows higher. Tsunami informs him that it's too late. He has already scattered embers around him. If he moves, he will turn to ash. On cue, the man's arm catches fire, much to his dismay, and Tsunami relays what we have already been told. Once an Oni has eaten human flesh, they can never return to being human. He gives a goodbye, and the girl only says that she is sorry for lying. In his last moments, Yagami flashes back to what led to this. Reading the newspaper at a table with a beer next to him, and his wife yelling at him to stop drinking in the morning, calling him annoying and telling him just to go to sleep. He responds back that it can't be helped as he works night shifts and this is the only time he can drink. But this is only met with her telling him to shut up and informing him that dinner is on the top shelf of the fridge. The wife then goes over to their son and tells him that she will try to be home early, but she'll call if she's going to be late. Yagami walks over to the son and addresses him by name, Takuya, who he was calling out for earlier, and who he was disappointed there was no more of to eat. He asks him what's wrong and tells him to hurry up and eat so he won't be late. Yagami then gently places his hand on Takuya's shoulder and asks if something happened with Mom. But without even looking at him, the boy only responds, "Don't touch me. I'll catch your stupidity." Yagami swiftly punches his son in the head and begins mercilessly beating him. The boy reaches out, saying it hurts and calling for his mother. Yagami takes his son's hand and places it to his face, before ripping the hand off with his teeth, and then the horn erupts from his forehead. Back to the present, a new iteration of a previous character stands by a hearse, Ayanosuke Wakimi, the head of the Wakimi family, who states in much the fashion we are used to with him that he is glad to hear Tsunami was not injured. The Wakimi family has long served as an intermediary for those involved in folk beliefs such as prayer, divination, and spirit summoning, without being affiliated with shrines or temples. Originally, it was a sect of the folk Onmyodo from the Sagami province, and therefore the head of the family still learns Onmyojutsu. During the Edo period, the Tsuchimikado family, under the orders of the Tokugawa shogunate, ruled over all Onmyodo practices across the country. The Wakimi family made use of those who had fallen through the cracks, those who were considered outlaws. After the Meiji Restoration, with the loss of support from the ruling authorities, the Tsuchimikado family declined, while the Wakimi family, due to its unlawful past, was fortunate and instead grew in power. Now, not only from the political and financial world, but also, so to speak, from official shrines and temples, there are confidential requests. Only the head of the Wakimi family has the power to make connections with the Oni Slayer. Tsunami, Ayanosuke, and this small, all-dressed in black, white-haired girl are at the hearse, and Tsunami says that there is still time until dawn, so he's going to drive and for the girl, who he calls Eru, to get into the passenger seat. This statement giving us a little bit of insight into what some of you are probably already assuming to be her nature. Ayanosuke asks what he should do, and Tsunami playfully replies that he should experience the feelings of the dead every once in a while, insinuating he ride in the back of the hearse, or Tsunami could call a taxi. Eru just tells him to move aside, as Ayanosuke responds that there's no man who understands the feelings of the dead better than he does. Out in the field, the Oni stands, his hand burning away, seemingly not remembering what has happened. He absent-mindedly says to himself that the fridge is going to be empty soon, and he needs to catch something tasty quickly. As he turns to go, he is engulfed and begins to burn in place. There is a phenomenon called spontaneous human combustion, where a person suddenly catches fire and loses part or all of their body in a place with no visible source of flame. The supernatural technique used by Touken Tsunami is similar to that. Touken Tsunami does not control fire itself, but instead controls the spark that ignites the fire. The spark can only be seen by Touken Tsunami, and it has no form or weight. When someone touches the spark, it ignites at high temperature and instantly turns them to ash. And so it is with Yagami Atsushi. Chapter 2. The Human-Faced Oni. Eru is at a shrine performing the typical prayers given to a saisen box, the box you will often see people toss a coin into, as she is doing now. But something catches her attention. Horny teens making out, playing out the typical, "No, senpai, please stop." But instead of stopping, the boy tells the girl to do it with her mouth, and so she does, pushing him off of her right as he ejaculates. Momentarily stunned, he then stands up and slaps the girl. She hits the ground, and it seems as though the boy is about to turn into an Oni. A protrusion begins to emerge from his forehead, but suddenly he grabs his ear. As he removes his hand, he sees that it is covered in blood, and with a tearing sound, his ear falls away. Nearby is Eru, curiously holding an earring and apologizing that it must have gotten caught on her clothes. The boy curses and runs off as Eru yells after him that if he hurries to the hospital, they can probably reattach it. The boy's victim is uneasy on her feet, and one of her knees is scraped. Nonetheless, she merely passes by Eru with a simple thank you. But as the girl walks away, a voice seems to come from her, scoffing and saying that it got interrupted right at the good part, and this makes Eru suspicious. Later, she and Tsunami stand outside of a residence as Eru explains to him that after the events, she followed them, and she thinks that the guy is the one who draws the Oni's attention. But the voice was heard during the departure of the girl. She is confident in her hearing. Tsunami responds that maybe they were just a couple who likes it rough, and Eru accuses him of being an anti-feminist, to which he says he didn't mean it that way. Besides, if they show up out of nowhere, he doubts the residents will let the pair in. But Eru is already inside the door, waving at Tsunami as he tells her that if they show up suddenly in the room, they will call the cops. Fast forwarding, the police are there and Tsunami is in the back of a cop car, only saying, "I told you so," while Eru sits on the roof of a building, happily waving at him. Inside the home, the girl is understandably down and depressed. She showers, and afterwards her mother bandages her skinned knee, pressing for how it happened and asking if she's hiding anything. But the girl denies it and says she's fine. The mother says suspicious people have been showing up lately, most likely referring to Eru and Tsunami, and she's worried, continuing that she needs to tell her if anything happens. She'll consult with a man named Niki-san from the church. She then tells the girl to go to sleep and leaves, but the girl notices something. On her desk, underneath her cell phone, is a business card from Tsunami. She turns it over to read the words, Oni Slayer. The next day, a group of teens is confronting her, telling her that she's amazing for showing up to school like nothing happened. One of the girls talking to her is the girlfriend of the boy from yesterday, who she calls Otake. Apparently, he won't talk to her about what happened, but maybe she will. Why was she with him? She doesn't mind that the girl was cheating with her boyfriend, but she can't pretend to be innocent. One of the bullies grabs the girl and calls her Yuki and demands to know what she did to Otake's ear, but she says it wasn't her. Pressing further, she begins to verbally berate Yuki, stating that Yuki was abandoned by her father. She envies other people's dads, so she got all twisted up. Does she feel at peace when she goes after someone else's boyfriend? Was it fun? Finishing by calling her a worthless woman. Yuki just stands there with her head down, but a voice comes from her, repeating back the words of the girl's boyfriend. Are you worried about her? She kept pestering me, so I just used her as material and slept with her 3 times. Every time something happens, she cries like a little kid. It's so annoying. Plus, being a virgin is such a drag, and she smells like a dead fish. It's disgusting. She reeks. Are you talking about that heartless bastard? Could he be your boyfriend? The bully loses her temper and grabs Yuki by the throat, screaming at her to die and calling her a piece of trash. The others try to pull the girl off Yuki, but something happens. The voice that was quoting Otake apologizes. It's sorry that it had to come to this. It knows Yuki is confused, but the same is for it. It was close to possessing Otake, but the hornless bastard got in the way. Next thing it knew, it was already deep in this mess. From now on, it and Yuki are the same. Yuki's wish is its wish, and its wish is hers. Now, it's her turn. The voice is emanating from her scraped knee, the bandage now ripped open. Yuki's face is splattered with a bit of blood, and all the bullies are lifeless on the ground. She takes the leg of one of the girls and prepares to bite in. Yuki is at home, and her mother asks what's wrong. Did school end early? Did she eat lunch? Did something happen at school? Emerging from the ripped bandages on Yuki's knee is a face, and it begins to speak. Every single day, pretending to care about that useless girl. Aren't you tired of the act? You're as obsessive as your ex-husband. I seriously have no idea what goes on in your head. Why don't you just die already? Why are you still around? Why haven't you killed yourself yet? Learn to read the damn room, idiot. How many times did I mutter that in the kitchen? Yuki cries and begs her mother for help as the voice begins to laugh. Outside the home, Niki from the church and a man named Sakakibara have arrived and are asking to be let in. As they enter the home, Yuki's mother dives into the arms of Nikki, pleading for help, and he tells her that it will be okay. Sakakibara is the church's top exorcist. They will definitely save Yuki. Sakakibara enters Yuki's room and tells her that there's nothing to fear. Everything will go back to normal tomorrow. Yuki's mother and Nikki are interrupted by a growl and a thud. Nikki goes and finds Sakakibara on the floor, bleeding from his face, and demands to know what happened. Sakakibara lifts his head, clutching his bleeding eye, and begins to yell at Nikki, asking how long he's been doing this job. That's an Oni! He demands Nikki call the church administration and get in touch with the Wakimi family. The curiosity of Nikki gets the better of him, and as he looks into Yuki's room, the face on Yuki's knee speaks to him. It's been waiting for him. It's been waiting all this time for him. Yuki grabs Nikki's face and pulls it to her knee. The face smiles at him and begins to confront him about the darkness in his heart. It knows what Nikki has been trying to do, to take advantage of Yuki's mother and claim her mansion as compensation, even wanting to claim her daughter. The darker the soul, the better. It's so dark, it's almost impressive. The Oni leaps off of Yuki's knee and onto Nikki's face. He struggles, but it has him. It seems Yuki lost consciousness for a moment. She wakes up on the bed, and seeing blood outside of her door, she instantly goes to her cell phone. She dials the number on Tsunami's business card, but is met with it going straight to voicemail. She steps out of the room. The bloodied corpse of Sakakibara is at her feet, and down the hall, she can hear Nikki and the Oni, which now possesses him, talking about the manner in which Nikki is eating the corpse. Yuki rushes for the door, but to her surprise, it won't open. The door latch, the kind you often see in hotel rooms, which will only allow the door to open so far, has been twisted so that the door won't move at all. Behind her, Nikki is stepping closer, and the Oni tells her that it's dangerous for a girl to be going out this late. Remember their promise. The two of them are one together. Both Nikki and the human-faced tumor Oni begin to laugh, and in Nikki's hand is the head of Yuki's mother. Yuki screams, and there is a slam behind her. Tsunami appears and wraps his arm around the girl as he tells the Oni not to move, or it will turn to ash. The Oni roars, and there's a flash. It seems the events are over. Ayanosuke and Tsunami are on a bridge out in the forest, and Ayanosuke tells Tsunami that Sakakibara, the self-proclaimed exorcist, his last words over the phone were that it's a human-faced Oni. But Tsunami calls it a wandering Oni. It couldn't decide whether to possess the guy which Ernestine, the full name of Eru, saw at the shrine, or the girl stuck with the wandering Oni clung to her knee. Tsunami continues that Yuki didn't eat humans. She held back, and because of that, she was able to return to being human. Everyone has times when they hate and want to curse someone. Whether it happens often or rarely, yesterday or today, it doesn't matter. None has the right to judge someone else's soul. There's no one with a purer soul than his, you know. Everyone hides a dark soul deep within their heart. Oni can sense the darkest, deepest souls. Oni devour humans. To eat humans, the human heart becomes an obstacle. Oni prefer those who are human, yet not truly human, to consume more, to devour more. Oni prefer those who are no longer truly human, but even Oni get confused sometimes. When they come across two messed up souls, they can't always tell which one is worse, and that confusion creates a wanderer Oni. It shows up in someone's body with a demon's face, acting like it's a totally different person, but it's not. It's just the real them hiding inside. Chapter 3. Brother Oni. A man sits on the edge of a bed, and behind him in that same bed a bloody, mangled female corpse. The phone to his ear, he apologizes to his brother, saying that he only meant to hold her, but he did it again. He ended up devouring the woman he picked up. Things have no blood, no warmth. All they hold is cold, pitch-black darkness. Blood that is too dark looks like pure blackness. When two entities possess people bound by blood, a bond, much like the one formed by human blood, sometimes remains. People say that through dark blood, parts of those entities merge with one another. There is a knock at the window. The man's brother is outside, clinging to the windowsill many floors up from the ground. And once inside, he drops a suitcase on the bed, telling the brother that everything he needs is in there. Dismember the woman in the bathroom and pack her into smaller bags. If she doesn't fit, eat until she does. Take this as a lesson to stop involving himself with women. The brother can't cover for him anymore. He finishes by calling him a brat. The man grabs his brother and begins yelling at him. Just who is he calling a brat? But the brother coldly responds that he'll kill him. And then the man is quickly restrained and apologizing. At the front desk, the man apologizes and hands over 100,000 yen, explaining that things got a little rough and the bed got messed up. 50 for the bed, 50 for the tips. Behind him stands a girl who tells him to head to the back. She'll grab the stuff, and she eyeballs a security camera in the lobby. Outside, in the back, the brother tosses the suitcase of body parts down to the man, much to his dismay, and then he leaps out and down, catching himself on a windowsill by one finger. He tells the man to take it home and eat everything down to the bones, dissolve whatever is left behind and flush it down the toilet. But the man says give him a break. He didn't pick up the woman to eat. She's all skin and bones with fake breasts. There's nothing left to eat. The brother only looks down at him wordlessly, and he thinks back. A message, something he intends to deliver. Brother, it's been 10 years since I left home, yet our stepfather's shadow still lingered. In the end, I knew I had no choice but to kill him. When our stepfather violated me, I felt something beyond the pain. From the very beginning, that's why I ran away from home. In those 10 years, I didn't think about you or mother. All I remembered was his stench. There wasn't a single night I didn't vomit bile. I've killed people, more than I can count. And one day, I noticed I grew horns. That day, when I saw the corpses of our stepfather and mother in that house, after 10 years, I understood the price of running away. That day, when you killed them and ran, I felt love for you. I wanted to protect you. Brother, by the time you hear this, I'll no longer be able to protect you. Brother, I will become white ash and remain silently by your side. The man down in the street says, don't make him laugh. He's acting like a big brother now. He calls him a coward and ditches the suitcase in an alley. The TwinTales Girl is at that alley. Above her is the brother on a rooftop. The two make eye contact, but exchange no words. And then, he's gone. High above the city in a high-rise apartment, an overweight man asks, did the brother see the twin-tailed girl from Onibarai police station? The brother, who is performing fellatio on the overweight man, says that he made sure she was far enough away that the girl couldn't hear him, but the man responds not to underestimate her. If Tsunami is the prince of hell, she is the queen. That woman is the key to banishing the Oni. The man introduces us to the brother's name, calling him Katana, saying his true identity will soon be revealed. He should kill his brother and expose it. That's the only way to survive. He responds that if it's the only way, he'll do it. Repeating his mistakes, Katana's brother is out in the open with a woman, and she asks if she did something wrong, but he tells her to get lost, and she cheerfully says she'll contact him again. Katana appears on the street in front of his brother and presents him with a suitcase. He tells him to take it and head to the airport immediately. There's a plane ticket and money inside. But his brother says, it's fine. Just leave him alone already. If this is meant as atonement, it's enough. He's grateful. Sure, he was a brat, but he gave it his all, and he's not as good as Katana. He apologizes for troubling him, and he leaves. But behind Katana, there is a group of men in trench coats discussing where they should go, but one says there's one simple task left. Two of them turn to Katana and reveal that they have horns. They say, smiling, that they should finish it quickly and head out. Katana yells for his brother to run, and so he does, and Katana leaps after the pursuing Oni, only to be struck in the hand by a kunai, and he hits the ground. One of the Oni lifts him by the collar and tells him that he deserves a spanking, but he stabs this man in the eye with the kunai that pierced his hand. Katana then places the Oni in an armbar and dislocates his shoulder before dashing off, climbing a wall as 3 more knives strike it. The injured Oni asks the other if they should go after him, but he says it's all done. No Oni can survive going against Okido-san, the overweight man we saw before. Sooner or later, they'll slip up and be killed by the Oni Slayer. By the time Katana finds his brother, he is nothing but a dismembered and decapitated corpse in a parking lot, and so he leaves, climbing the rooftops to escape it all. Later that night, he looks out over the city. His message from earlier, which he intended to deliver to his brother, continues. Little brother, this will probably be the last time. Okido demands you be offered to Togen Tsunami, but I cannot offer you to Togen Tsunami. I do not understand the purpose of living in a world without you. Aware that he is not alone, he says aloud, they say that when the spark is sown, the moment you move, you'll ignite and turn to white ash. Behind him stands Tsunami, who says that he thought he finally caught the tail of Okido Man-iman. Katana only asks him why isn't he sowing the spark, and Tsunami simply responds that it seems they were both a step too late. He will regroup and try again. In a flash, Katana kicks off the window in front of him and climbs the ceiling to attack Tsunami from above, yelling not to underestimate him. But his message to his brother begins to play, and he stops his sword short of Tsunami's head. As the recording proceeds, we are shown the moment when the TwinTales Girl saw Katana on the roof. She's speaking to him, planting it in his mind for later, telling him that he doesn't trust anyone, not even his boss. This recording is in case he dies. He leaves a voice message for someone he cares about along with a URL, ID, and password to the online storage. Having dropped his sword, the last of the TwinTales words come from his own mouth. Never thought I could read lips, did you? The message continues. Brother, others may see us as foolish and hopeless, but to me, you're not the same. You're a light that shines in the darkness. Because of you, I was able to hold on. Brother, please forgive me. Now the time has come to repay the debt of 10 years. I'm not sure how far I'll make it, but I'll try. Goodbye. Katana breaks down in tears, and Tsunami tells him that he doesn't know any Oni who would protect their brother with their own body, and that's why he's sure that Katana is not an Oni. Tsunami then leaves him there alone to grieve. We are shown the night that Katana left his little brother, that he briefly woke him up, but then he apologized for doing such and just told him to go back to sleep. People call those who are heartless, cold, and merciless like demons. If the darkness of a person's inflated heart covers them and turns them into an Oni, then, beyond the jet black darkness, there still might be a small light that hasn't faded. Chapter 4. Little Oni. Part 1. In a school hallway, a group of boys are cheering on a fight between two other students, Yanagita and Mikami, but walking past them and the excitement is a downtrodden and depressed young man. Before he makes it too far away, Yanagita calls to the depressed young man by name, Izumi Hajime. He tells him that if he says anything to the teacher, he'll kill him. The boys laugh at Izumi, who doesn't respond. As soon as he's out of sight, he mutters to himself, calling them idiots and wishing they would all die. In their second year of high school and they still don't know how to dress properly. As he heads up a stairwell, something grabs his attention. A small horned imp smiles at him. He questions if it was just his imagination, but is snapped back to reality by someone yelling his name. A short-haired girl stands above him and yells, asking what his deal is. He shows up late in the morning, disappears during lunch, and he thinks it's fine to leave the class duties to the girls. He apologizes, addressing her as Wakimi, and as we'll find out later, this is Koko Wakimi, little sister of Ayanosuke. She tells Izumi just to handle it, and hands him a blackboard eraser, remarking as she walks off that they need to stop assigning class duties in pairs. Someone always skips out. Izumi stares at the eraser for a moment before hearing a splat which snaps him out of his daze. Outside, Yanagita is splattered on the asphalt. The students of the school gather round and gawk at the corpse. Murmurs from the crowd ensue. Yanagita said he was going to the bathroom and just jumped after that. Was it really a suicide? Something to do with family issues? Was it revenge from Mikami for bullying? No way, Mikami would have flown off instead. They conclude that it must have been suicide, troubles that he didn't share with anyone. Didn't have to be so secretive. Then the group of boys start to laugh over this. Izumi sits alone in a classroom, drawing the imp that he saw earlier in his notebook. Coco appears, peering over his shoulder and asking him what it's supposed to be. He closes the notebook and says it's nothing, just a random doodle, but Coco compliments him on his skill. Out in the hallway, she confronts him. After she handed him the eraser, he ran up the stairs, didn't he? He stutters, trying to ask what she's saying, but she cuts him off and just continues. The spot he went up to on the roof is where Yanagita jumped to his death. The timing is almost too perfect. She just wants to know if he saw anything. She doesn't care that a guy like him died, but he really wasn't the kind of guy to be so sensitive that he would commit suicide. So she thought it was a bit strange. Izumi, thinking back to staring at that eraser, only says he doesn't know. He didn't see anything. And he leaves Coco sitting alone. Izumi's mother and he are in a parent-teacher conference as the teacher begins to explain that Izumi's grades have continually been dropping since enrollment. He's often late and he's short on credits for 2 subjects, but he can make those up with supplementary lessons. The mother apologizes profusely, but the teacher continues that at this rate it's going to become a serious issue. They should try their best to keep things from slipping any further. The conversation continues as Izumi looks down and begins to mutter to himself, "Die, die, 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 die." When he looks up, the little imp from earlier is wrapped around the teacher, who is concluding the meeting. As his mother continues to apologize, Izumi suddenly stands up. Things begin to rush through his mind. The boys beating up Mikami, blaming him for the death of Yanagita, the other students gathered around the corpse, and the students laughing. Izumi passing by all of these events, all while the word "die" is repeated over and over. Coco sits alone in a classroom on a desk as someone enters. She believes it to be her Aunt Kiko, who she calls out to for being late, but it's Ayanosuke. She demands to know why he's here, but he only smiles and asks if she was going to decide her future without ever consulting her only big brother. She yells at him to stay back. She doesn't want to catch his perversion. What happened to their aunt? He continues to smile and says not to make it sound so bad. Aunt Kiko is just fine. She asks again what happened to their aunt, but he only smiles at her more. She asks if he drugged her before launching into yelling at him that she'll tell the teacher everything about the trashy family business and about his creepy criminal hobbies too. He laughs and says, "Go ahead. He'll gladly explain in detail just how noble and meaningful his hobbies truly are for the good of humanity." She continues to yell for a moment, but they stop. It's really getting late. Ayanosuke suddenly becomes serious. He smells fresh blood. They dash out of the classroom to find the source. Izumi's mother and the teacher's mutilated bodies lay on the floor surrounded by blood, and Ayanosuke spots tiny bloody footprints leading away from the scene. He enters further into the room and announces that both the teacher and mother are dead. Judging from their wounds, the claws and fangs of the culprit are very small. The footprints are about the size of a monkey's. This is the work of a very small Oni. This obviously registers with Coco, who thinks back to Izumi's drawing. Ayanosuke tells her to wait. Even if it's a small Oni, it should still be left to the Slayers, but she's already headed out and yells that she will not rely on the trashy family business, and she dashes down the hallway. Ayanosuke stays behind, pulling out a flip phone, and he calls for Tsunami. However, he is met with the response that Tsunami is sorry he can't today. The air conditioner cleaning service is coming, and he has sewing piling up too. Can Ayanosuke cover for him? And Ayanosuke only has the reply of, "Are you kidding me?" Coco comes to a stairwell and sees that it is littered with students' clothes, which she inspects for a moment, and then she continues on up. Once on the roof, she is surprised by what she sees. A voice comes. "It's not him. It's not him. The little Oni did it all by itself." Ayanosuke appears through the door behind Coco, panting and informing her that he called for an Oni Slayer. She should just calm it down so it won't get agitated. Coco pulls out a compact mirror from her pocket and tosses it to Izumi, telling him to look at it. Little claws catch the mirror and begin to open it. Izumi sees what he has become, the little imp, and he begins to cry. He tries to deny it. He throws the mirror on the ground, shattering it, and he leaps at Coco, yelling that she's lying. Don't deceive him. Coco swiftly kicks the little imp out of the air. She looks down on him and tells him to look closely. That is his ugly heart, just as it is. And in the bathroom of the school, we see a body torn apart and little footprints all over the floor. Little Oni, Part 2. Ayanosuke recites an incantation as he draws a door on the wall. A door in the wall. Beyond the door lies darkness. The darkness is a vessel. He yells for Coco, who is currently still kicking around the little Oni, who yells at her, asking who does she think she is? Does she think her heart is pure? Showing off is annoying. Does she think being good at school makes her special? But she responds with another kick while yelling at him that high school isn't compulsory education. Go get a job. The little Oni flies through the air towards Ayanosuke, who holds open the door he drew, and after, it flies in, and he closes the door and erases the knob. Coco doesn't seem to approve of this, though, and provides critique. Even if he removes the outer handle, it doesn't change what's inside. His techniques are as sloppy as ever. How does he even manage to act as the head of the Wakimi family like that? Unbothered, he tells her that it's just a trick. As long as Izumi falls for it, that's all that matters. The key is figuring out what kind of person you're dealing with. All the while he is confidently chattering. Behind him, there is a swarm of small Oni gathering in the actual doorway to the stairwell, on the roof above, and climbing the fences. Coco yells for him to look behind him, but it's too late. The little Oni grab Ayanosuke and begin to carry him away. Coco tries to kick and punch her way through the little demons to get to him, but she doesn't get there before they throw him off of the roof. As she yells after him, one of the little Oni grabs her leg, and she falls to the ground as the swarm of little demons surround her. Ayanosuke continues to fall, but he draws a wing on his back, which instantly sprouts. It's not enough, though, and he smacks the eave of the building and bounces off, but he's caught before he hits the ground by none other than Tsunami, who says that the repairs finished quicker than he thought. Ayanosuke clings to him and gives him his thanks and explanations, but Tsunami asks if he was in the middle of something. The gym, the hallways, the classrooms, all throughout the school, there were no students or staff, only piles of clothing. Ayanosuke questions if this could really be happening. Everyone who remained after the school was turned into little Oni. Could it be a coincidence? But Tsunami says no. This is a carefully set trap. Then there is a familiar sight, if you were here for the previous videos. A barrier of desks and chairs piled in a hallway. Ayanosuke goes to charge, but Tsunami tells him to wait and look carefully. Ayanosuke recognizes it for what it is, and Tsunami tells him that it looks like it's going to be a long day. As Ayanosuke marvels at the barrier, Tsunami remarks that most of the little Oni haven't eaten people, so it's not just Coco being held hostage, but those little Oni as well, with an aside that it looks like they finally used their brains a bit. They charge up the stairs, and Ayanosuke informs Tsunami that they caught a little Oni earlier, but he also wants to know what Tsunami meant by they finally used their brains a little bit. As they continue to head up, Tsunami yells back that he wiped them out a long time ago. He'll explain everything in detail later. Right now, Coco is in danger, and they are trying to bring him back using her womb. Coco awakes on the floor of the classroom. When she comes to, she realizes she doesn't have any underwear. A voice comes telling her not to worry. Their master's mother's body has not been harmed. Before her is a shadowy mess. It is composed of many voices. Some want to eat Coco. Others discuss verifying her reproductive organs. And some others tell her how lucky she is to carry their master in her womb. The mass is a golem composed of the little Oni, and they begin to laugh. Coco takes off running, but as she passes through the door, it only brings her right back to the classroom, as though she were entering through the same door. The little Onis laugh at her more. Their master's magic has made it impossible to escape. They laugh about her brother. He probably uses it too, but he looks weak. He'll probably fall and crack his head open. Coco looks at the ground and says she doesn't care about the family, but yells not to underestimate her brother. She leaps at the golem for a punch, but the little Oni grab her and pull her in. Up on the roof, the Izumi Oni cries, saying it's sorry, it won't do bad things anymore, it won't turn a blind eye to bad things anymore. This was a feint though, and it leaps at Tsunami, calling him too weak to be an Oni Slayer, but to its surprise, it's collared and leashed by Ayanosuke. It begins to apologize once more, but Tsunami says it hurt his feelings, and he asks if he can turn it to ash. They approach the barrier, and the Izumi Oni points out his desk. It's the one of a doodle with a pregnant woman on it. Tsunami reaches out to it, and he says he sees. This is the womb. To Ayanosuke's shock, the barrier has disappeared, but Tsunami corrects him. It is they who have disappeared. They are inside the barrier. He asks Ayanosuke how long it will take to open the barrier, and Ayanosuke responds that the entire school grounds are probably covered. It's too large. 1 or 2 days won't be enough. They need to at least figure out the first verse. Tsunami tells him that the first verse is, "The demon is in the house." He, their foe, always recites that one at the start. Ayanosuke kneels and begins to draw on the ground with his chalk, saying that the beginning is, "The demon is in the house," and the ending is, "This is the womb." If he has an hour, no, 30 minutes, he can recite the reverse verse and open the barrier. Tsunami says to open it in 10. He's also unsure here. Coco awakes to the voices of the little Oni surrounding her and chanting, "It's tsunami, it's tsunami, it's tsunami." And so it is. He confronts the monster, stating 3 demons have eaten humans. The rest are just human shells. As always, cowardly and filthy, he's glad to see his foe hasn't changed. Coco weakly asks about Ayanosuke, but Tsunami tells her he's fine. He's reciting the reverse verse. She apologizes, saying that she was stupid. She thought she was making her own choices, but she was just going along with what was picked for her. She thought she was being brave, but really she was running away. The little Izumi Oni at Tsunami's side seems remorseful and concerned seeing Coco like this. Tsunami only replies that he told her to stop so many times. If you make a mistake, just don't repeat it. Their foe just ties the thread. He's not spinning it. Her choice is hers. Coco is held by the golem and essentially implanted within its body. The little Oni comprising it tell them that this is the result and demand that Izumi impregnate her. Izumi looks up at her as the little Oni continue to goad him. Everyone knew how he feels about her. He would often draw her in his notebook. Behind him, Tsunami says that there are 3 in the group who ate people. Izumi should be able to tell who they are. If he will identify them, Tsunami can save Coco. He releases the leash and asks Izumi if he understands why he was chosen. Because he resembles the one behind all of this. The little Oni then confirm this and continue to encourage him. Izumi leaps and picks out the first one, and with a thanks and a snap, Tsunami burns it. But this causes Coco to scream. The Oni laugh and say that they forgot to mention that they are all connected to Coco, brain and nerves. Though in the pain, she says that she's fine. Hurry up. Izumi cries at the sight of her in pain, saying it's impossible, and the golem says they will continue later. Stay back and watch like always. And it begins to step forward. It slams Tsunami into the blackboard, and though he begins to bleed from his mouth, he remains silent. It laughs at him, saying it won't kill him. If the demon hunter dies, another will be born right after, so he will stay here permanently. But Tsunami responds that it's better to not move. If he moves, he'll turn it to ash. It begins to laugh. Does Tsunami plan on burning Coco and those who haven't eaten people? While it taunts, what it does not know is that when it slammed into Tsunami, he passed a piece of chalk to Coco. Tsunami tells Izumi not to be afraid. Once the barrier is open, the fire will disappear, and after that, he can feel free to kill Tsunami. There is a flashback. Tsunami and young Coco standing outside the Wakimi estate. Tsunami asks if she's gotten used to living here. But she says yeah, she lived here until the 3rd grade. She used to practice karate, so no one bothered. Tsunami continues that the previous head wanted her to inherit the house. He often said she had good potential, but Coco smiles and says she doesn't really fit that. When she left everything to Ayanosuke. In the present, Ayanosuke has covered the ground in writing, and the building begins to rumble. He recites the words, "The womb is this is the grave." The little Oni golem continues to taunt Tsunami, saying, "Fight to the end, struggle to the end, don't give up. It's disappointed, there's still a plan, hang in there." But Coco is drawing a circle on her forehead and reciting an incantation of her own. Horns on the forehead, horns are the demon. Izumi leaps, thinking back to his human life, apologizing to Mikami and Wakimi. He was afraid of getting hurt, body and heart. He grabs another one who is 8, Hashida. Coco yells that it's too early, the barrier hasn't opened yet. But the little demon catches fire all the same as Ayanosuke chants the last reverse verse. The house is a demon. Coco finishes her own incantation. Demons have strength. The Onis taunt, Tsunami lights fires, and Coco sprouts a horn and fangs. She flings the little Oni off of her, Kojima and Hashida. That makes 2 of the 3. Then the one remaining is Izumi, who begs for his life, saying he didn't want to, he was forced to do it, but she only yells that he can at least die like a man, and she crushes his head. Chapter 5. Stopping Oni. A group of boys stands on the side of the road, joking about one of them, having sex with an animal that has the body of a human and the face of a koala. A young boy nearby holds a bicycle over his shoulder and asks aloud to someone named Shuzo if he'll ever grow up, if he will ever even be able to have sex. In the back of a truck, an old man, the aforementioned Shuzo, tells him not to hold the bike with one hand like that, as he looks like a kid. He needs to be careful. With one hand, the boy effortlessly tosses the bike in the back of the truck, scaring the old man, who glares and gives us the boy's name, Rui. As Rui climbs into the passenger seat of the truck, he tells Shuzo not to glare at a kid like that. He'll get reported to the cops. The truck drives down the road, and the old man announces through a PA mounted on top that it's a scrap truck, come to take away old items that are no longer needed. It is said that children cannot be possessed. Children do not possess dark souls because they cannot distinguish between good and evil, or so they say. Adults think they understand things much better than they did as children. In the end, humans die without understanding anything. The difference between adults and children lies in whether or not they understand this fact or have forgotten. That's all there is to it. The truck continues down the road, and Shuzo tells Rui that if he promises he'll never eat that, then Shuzo will buy him a woman. The boy casually responds that he wants a high schooler, about the same age as him, but Shuzo turns to him and yells not to be stupid. Buying a schoolgirl will get him in trouble. His first should be someone with experience. Rui has kept his eyes on the road and yells for the old man to look out, as ahead, Eru stands in the road, and Shuzo is too slow. He presumes that he hit her, and Rui tells him that he wasn't going that fast and there wasn't much impact. He's sure it's not a big deal. Shuzo heads back to the scene, telling Rui that he will turn himself in after he drops the boy off. But Eru is gone. Both are astonished, and Rui says he didn't think Shuzo hit her, but the old man is convinced that he did, and he couldn't have hit her that hard. But atop the truck sits Eru. She hangs upside down behind them and greets them. They get out of the truck to yell at her, but she's gone again. Later that night, by a river, Shuzo speaks with a man wearing a suit and sunglasses about their encounter. He knows of the blonde and gothic Lolita wear. She's a hornless hunting Oni for the exorcists. Shuzo asks him to clarify hornless Oni, and the man states that she is a vampire, continuing that you know what they say about vampires, right? It's the same with Shuzo's nephew. He heard that there used to be a few around here a long time ago. The man continues eating while talking to Shuzo. The vampires are considered to be abominations, not only among humans, but also among demons, because it's said to be contagious. They are very powerful, but have one fatal weakness. That's why they couldn't survive around here. The man offers Shuzo a hot bun of some sort, but he turns it down, and the man goes on as it is revealed that he's sitting on a cooler. He hears it's getting harder to gather ingredients now, even from the neighboring country. Even the ground meat at the Oni store contains less than 10% human meat. Eating it won't turn your brain to mush. Shuzo asks since when, and the man replies who knows, maybe since the neighboring country got their new leader. Shuzo wonders if this is why Rui stopped growing, and he says it could be. He's never heard of a kid possessed by anything, so he can't really say for sure. He tosses his food wrapper into the river and says, "Stay safe." When Shuzo questions this, the man replies that if there's an Oni around, then the Oni Slayer must be nearby too. Not sure if he is after Rui, but he suggests they hide for a while. Looks like the man will have to go to the neighboring country, and he doubts they'll ever meet again. Shuzo will need to buy his meat elsewhere. Suddenly, Shuzo is stunned. The wrapper in the river catches on fire, and Tsunami is behind the man, giving his classic line of telling him he better not move, or he'll turn to ash. With a smile, he questions this as he turns to see Tsunami fading into the night. Shuzo pleads for him not to go, but the man only lowers his sunglasses and reveals his Oni fangs, while, with a smile, saying not to get him wrong. Just remember, he's not human, and neither is Shuzo's nephew. And then, the man bursts into flames, and the cooler along with it. Eru is at a shrine once more, offering her prayers. The original text of her speaking is in Polish, giving us insight into Eru's origin. She prays to her mother that she hopes she can kill the enemy soon. Rui is behind her, sitting on top of a komainu, a common Japanese lion dog statue at shrines. He asks what language that is and what she's praying for. Eru is swift as the head of the statue rolls to the ground, but Rui is also quick. He now hangs from a tree branch above, telling her that was scary. She'll be cursed for that and won't get her wish. Eru brushes this remark off, saying that there are 8 million gods in this country, so don't worry, calling him a kid and telling him to go home and go to bed. But he says she's a kid too, right? He has a sensitive nose. No matter how fast she is, he'll always find her. In an instant, she hangs upside down from the same branch in front of him, asking if he's a stalker. Rui falls, but from the ground he smiles and asks if this means she doesn't want to have sex. The komainu head crashes between his legs, and Eru prepares to throw another, telling him not to get cheeky. He doesn't even have hair down there yet. He panics and surrenders, saying she's mistaken. He may look like a kid, but he's already 17. He was just wondering if she is the same as him, and that's why he wants to be friends. He's sorry for testing her. Eru halts her attack and says, sure, asking why he didn't just say so from the beginning. Eru introduces herself, and Rui likewise, but she tells him that they can only hang out until Tsunami finishes work. Of course, Rui asks who that is, and she casually informs him that he's an Oni Slayer, as she struggles to put the head of the komainu back on its body. The title of Oni Slayer strikes Rui, and he is dazed for a moment, but Eru slaps him playfully, but hard enough to knock him to the ground, saying not to worry. Tsunami wouldn't bother with a small fry like him. As he gathers himself, she apologizes and asks if it hurts, which it does. He's bleeding, but he says his skull isn't cracked, so he's fine. Simple wounds heal like this, as he's part Oni. Suddenly, Eru stops, saying it's getting late, so she's heading home, and in a flash, she's gone. He yells after her to wait, but she's nowhere to be seen. That doesn't stop him from still yelling that he'll be there tomorrow at the same time. Later, Tsunami is sewing garments for Eru and informs her that they'll be leaving around dusk tomorrow. It will be a longer journey, so she should get some rest early tonight. But Eru, actually having the alternative motive of meeting with Rui tomorrow, says that Tsunami must be tired after fighting all those Oni. Why not stay here and rest tomorrow? He agrees that maybe she's right, and she cheerfully tells Tsunami goodnight before climbing into her bed, which is inside of a closet, and she closes the door. From behind the closed door, she informs Tsunami that she made a friend, and she's going to tell him goodbye tomorrow. Tsunami replies, all right, with a gentle smile. The next day, the scrap truck is out doing its usual thing with the PA blaring loudly. Shuzo gets turned down as it's revealed that he asked for a disposal fee before removing the old goods. We can see that Rui is not doing too well in the truck. It seems he's tired and possibly ill, and as the old man returns to the truck, he tells Rui to go home and rest. They won't have any luck around here. Everyone is broke. In his delirium, Rui's only response is asking, "He killed and ate him, right?" He's scared. He feels just like that day. He doesn't remember what happened. That day he was filled with anxiety and frustrations, just like this. Shuzo is worried. Could having Rui stop eating human flesh that quickly had this kind of effect? As he treks on without Rui while following a possible customer, he thinks about a previous conversation where Rui asked for new shoes as his current ones are giving him blisters. He's never measured Rui's height or weight, but Rui had been growing little by little. He just assumed he hadn't by how he looked. All this while following the customer absent-mindedly while the customer prattles on about how he's moving away the day after tomorrow and trash collection wouldn't have made it in time. Rui stares at the sky and wonders if seeing his blood yesterday has the same kind of feeling on Eru that he has now. But back with his uncle, the customer has become irate, grabbing Shuzo by the collar and yelling at him for the fee. 70,000 yen? His advertisement said it was free, but Shuzo denies this. The man takes Shuzo to the ground, strangling him and yelling that they just take what they want and make a profit by illegally dumping the rest. Shuzo continues to deny this, but the man goes on saying that he is the one who should be charging 70,000 yen for this, but he gave it for free. Suddenly the man is lifted and thrown against the bottom of the eaves. He hits the ground with a splat and begins to scream, blood pouring from his face. Rui, enraged, bashes the man over the head with both hands. Shuzo yells at him that he's an idiot and begins to drag him away. They are quickly in the truck, and Shuzo tells Rui to go as far as he can before the truck is spotted. Leave the truck at a place where it will be hard to find, somewhere he can buy time. They'll leave the city like this. Rui is obviously confused, but in the back of his mind, there's one word. Eru. Rui yells that they've been moving from city to city anyways. They'll be fine in the next city too. They'll manage. Don't worry about anything. He lowers his voice and apologizes, saying that when he saw Shuzo being pinned down by that guy, his vision turned red and he couldn't think of anything. Shuzo responds that it's fine now. If he somehow manages to survive, it's just an assault charge and the heat will die quickly. But Rui tells him that he felt the sensation of the guy's neck bone breaking in his hand. He's probably not alive anymore. This changes things for Shuzo as his eyes widen. He pulls over at a train station, which confuses Rui. He thought that Shuzo was going to dump the car in the mountains, but the old man tells him to get off. This is as far as they go. End it here. Rui begins to cry and plead that Shuzo will probably do well in the next town too. Don't worry. He's said not to worry about anything. Shuzo is also crying now, gripping the steering wheel tightly and pulling his face close to it. He says that he's sorry. It was his fault. He was the one who introduced that monster to his sister. It's all his fault. He thought he could make up for it because Rui is his sister's child, whether he's a demon or something else. He thought he could manage somehow. With Rui now outside the truck, Shuzo gives his final words. Rui is probably going through a growth period. It came much later than others, but it's what he thinks is called puberty. At this point, he can't handle it anymore. Take the bag on the dashboard. It's his sister's life insurance and money from selling her house. All of it is untouched. He tells him to be cautious and hide his true self. Don't be afraid of the truth. Don't be afraid of pain. They both pass quickly. His pain and another person's pain are one and the same. This is who they are. This is what binds them. Now go. With that, Rui boards a train, and near a komainu that has had its head reattached recently, Eru sits alone, waiting for someone who will never show. We are shown the police finding a broken guard railing near a body of water, and elsewhere, Rui sits in an alley, head down, knees pulled up to his face. A young woman approaches and asks why he's alone. What's he doing out at this hour? Where's his home? Shall she escort him back? And he agrees. A demon's lifespan is said to be 300 years, or even 1,000 years. However, no tales exist of demons who lived out their full lifespan and died of old age. Demons are stronger than humans, but a group of humans armed with weapons is stronger than a demon. A demon's lifespan is ultimately decided by humans. Demons are born from humans, feed on humans, and are killed by humans. The exorcist Togen Tsunami is merely another weapon wielded by humans. 6 years later. Rui is having sex with a woman, someone he picked up on the street, picked up by the street. They don't even know each other's name. His pain and another person's pain are the same. That was a mistake. He didn't even feel pain from the start. He tells the woman good night and snaps her neck. As he carries her body down the hallway to dismember it in the shower, he thinks to himself that the children of demons probably don't have a heart to begin with. Later that night, he goes for a walk, and through the crowd he sees what he believes is Eru. He chases after her, ending up in a deserted back street where he yells her name. She appears behind him and only softly says his name. As he turns around, she decapitates him, offering a solemn goodbye as she looks down at his head. A flashback. A man, presumably Rui's father, holds up a kettle full of hot water, telling him to put out his hands. If he drinks it all without spilling it, the man will forgive him. Rui holds out his shaking hands, and the man begins to pour the hot water on them as the boy cries that it's hot, and the man only calls him an idiot, saying, "Of course it is. It's boiling," and he can't even endure it. Rui's mother pulls on the man, begging him to stop, but the man only says she's spoiling him. She's failing at disciplining the child. He grabs her by the hair and begins to pour the kettle in her mouth, and when she's on the ground, he pours it over her head. Rui's eyes begin to bleed. In the present, he finally feels pain as he's consumed by Tsunami's flames. 6. Zashiki Warashi and others. We pick back up at the school directly after the events of Chapter 4. The students who did not consume human flesh returning to normal-ish. A monologue from Coco is presented. The 466 students and 18 staff members who woke up in the classroom, like sleepwalkers, each of them returned to the place where they had transformed into small demons. Eagerly dressing, they tried to resume the work they had been doing until then. They looked at the clock and were startled. They learned the truth that everyone had shared the same dream. 3 bodies, Izumi Mikami's mother, the homeroom teacher, and one other, were burned and turned to ash by Uncle Tsunami. The pile of desks and chairs in the hallway was cleaned up by the remaining teachers and staff. The next morning, all related parties, including the students' parents, were gathered in the gymnasium. A detective from the Kanagawa Prefectural Police Odawara Station came, went up to the stage, and spoke for a few minutes, then dismissed everyone. After that, the incident was never mentioned by anyone again. I had heard from my brother about the girl who controls people with words, the flame, Kotodama, twin-tailed spirit user. But I was half skeptical, and, considering transferring schools, I took a week off. The school hasn't changed at all, except for the people who died. Even Yanagita's suicide by jumping has been erased from memory. However, the number of girls with twin tails has unusually increased. The aforementioned TwinTales Girl now sits with Ayanosuke, addressing him as teacher and asking if anything has changed. He says nothing has changed. He's doing well as usual. He says she should try visiting once in a while. There's no need to be shy about it. The girl gives him an intimidating stare before gulping down her tea and dismissing herself, saying she will see him next month. Ayanosuke finds it appropriate to add that if it's during the day, Ernestine, Eru, will be resting, so she doesn't have to worry about running into her. This, for some reason, does not please the twin-tailed girl, who gives Ayanosuke a stare. He begins to protest. He knows what's coming, saying he doesn't want to, but she's not dissuaded. She tells him that the summer is unbearably hot. The air conditioner has been broken since last night. The repairman never comes. And with that, she departs. As she walks down the road, she passes by Koko, who is thinking to herself about how she got help from Ayanosuke and was able to return to school. She should at least say thanks, but as she passes the TwinTales, she recognizes her for a moment. She enters the Wakimi residence and begins to ask about the TwinTales girl loudly before entering the room of Ayanosuke, only to find him nearly fully nude, throwing a lunch bag at him and yelling at him about being a pervert and not letting him explain. He is, but this one obviously wasn't his fault. Later, she is outside and grumping over the encounter. She gives us a little insight into some of her powers by drawing a bird on her hand with a pen and reciting an incantation, then blowing gently on the drawing. The little bird is the vast sky. The vast sky is the bird's eye view. The drawing comes to life and flies away as Koko tells it to find the twin-tailed woman. Her eyes go blank, and she now sees through the bird, finding the TwinTales girl walking ever down the road. Koko makes her way and catches up with her, doing her best to remain hidden and out of sight. She trails her to the subway, on one of the cars, down the escalator, and further into the next station. For a moment, she questions herself. What is she doing? It's only natural for the girl to go back to Odawara. What was she planning to do by following her? No matter. She'll just go to Odawara. She'll buy some fish cake for her aunt and head back. She has now followed the girl onto a bus and thinks about what she should say. Stay away from Ayanosuke and be careful because he's a pervert? Why though? It doesn't really matter. When she looks up, the TwinTales girl is in front of her in the next seat facing her. She asks bluntly why Koko doesn't take over the Wakimi family. If Ayanosuke becomes the head, the bloodline will be extinguished. Koko is rather upset by this, saying the twin-tail girl is just an outsider, right? She doesn't have any reason to be concerned. But it seems she's wrong. The twin-tailed girl addresses her by name and asks, she doesn't remember her? This catches Koko off guard, and she is thrust into memory as a little girl, peeking in on a meeting with Tsunami, the twin-tails, and what we can assume is the former head of the family. Twin-tails notices Koko, and Tsunami tells her it's fine. Go have fun. The two girls run along into the woods, and Koko introduces herself before asking TwinTales girl her name. She asks if she promises not to tell anyone, and Koko of course agrees, and as the TwinTales girl is about to speak her name, Koko is awoken by a conductor, telling her that the last train is coming soon. She quickly stands, aggravated that she's been tricked. She tries to think back to the memory, but she can't get the girl's name. At a loss, she decides to head home, but she doesn't even know where she is. At a rock riverbed beneath a bridge, the crime scene team and detectives are gathering evidence. One turns to the other and states that the victim's husband is there. What should they do? The other says they don't have a choice. They can't show him something like this. The corpse of a woman is split open with the intestines splayed, a horrified look upon her face. The man's wife was split open and her fetus taken. The culprit has small feet as a child's, and they ran away barefoot. The police try to restrain the husband as he screams his wife's name, Tomomi, and also approaching the scene is the TwinTales girl. In a classroom, it's a 5-hour self-study period, and the students are chattering away without a care. It seems Koko is in this class. She's tired. The encounter with the TwinTales girl threw off her sleeping schedule, and with the words of a fellow student telling her that they will wake her when the teacher comes, she falls asleep. In her dreams, she is in a house. A small horned figure in traditional Japanese clothing stands in a corner, repeating the words, "Demons are a family. Humans are." Koko runs, and the demon seems to be pursuing her without effort, continually repeating, "Demons are a family. Humans are." Out of breath, Koko collapses to her knees. Something is wrong. Her stomach swells. It begins to tear open, and a demon child rips its way out. Demons are a family. Humans are. Koko is being shook awake. It seems they are just going to go home today. The modern Japanese teacher, Miyashira, who was on maternity leave, was found dead this morning. Lifting her head from her desk, as Coco removes her hand, she reveals the drawing by Azumi left on his desk, the desk she now sits at. The drawing of the pregnant woman, the womb. It resembles the murder victim, Miyashira. In a dark room at the Wakimi estate, Tsunami apologizes to someone named Azuki, saying it's such a waste, but the woman sitting by a single candle says she was taken for this reason. She still has ears and a mouth. A young demon is cornered by others. They gather close, and a howl sounds before the other demons begin voraciously consuming him. One, a grotesque woman, walks away carrying a knife and an internal organ. Elsewhere, she slams that organ onto a table in front of a hooded figure. The hooded figure is a woman who turns to an unseen person, stating that the rotten scum has a liver that's as filthy as its nature. This person should eat it too. She'll give him half. That unseen person is Katana, standing against the wall holding his sword, and stoically says, human flesh and Oni flesh are the same. In other words, human and Oni are the same. The young hooded woman rips the liver in half and offers a piece to Katana, smiling and saying that he hasn't eaten human in a long time, right? At this rate, his liver might be the next target. But he only asks, what crime did this one commit? She gives a non-answer, saying that her, him, and the one they are eating carry the same sin. They are Oni after all, and she opens wide, consuming her half in one bite. She smiles as Katana prepares for his. Elsewhere, in the woman's bedroom, she clarifies that the one they ate peeked at her while she was in the bath and jerked off. Someone has to be sacrificed, but it won't be her. She's the princess of this community after all. The woman begins to remove her clothes as Katana asks her, Oni Slayer aside, how is she handling Okido? He doesn't allow cannibalism. With a smile, she says, curious. She can't sweet-talk her way out of it like him. But, just as he can sneak around the wall, she has her own special skills. If Okido calls, she has to go. In terms of paying the price with her body, she and Katana are the same in that regard. Everyone in the community no longer wants to cause trouble for the others. That's the only connection they have. Even knowing they might be the next to be eaten, they still choose to stay. She places her arms on Katana, telling him that the community isn't his place. When he leaves, please go without saying a word. She finishes by saying she's honestly glad he's gay. A phone rings, and when it is picked up, it's Coco trying to contact the murdered teacher, Miyashiro, but soon she realizes that she's been sent to voicemail. She rushes on, finding herself in front of a door where she draws a key on her palm before squeezing it closed and reciting another incantation. The door's key. The key is in my palm. She opens her palm, and there is indeed a key, which she uses to enter the apartment. What she sees is a man who hung himself from the curtain rod at the balcony window. She breathes a sigh, but is suddenly alerted. The TwinTales Girl enters, telling her to move aside. The rest is her job. Surprised, she addresses her as Odawara and says, since when? The girl says she's been following Coco since she left the school, and it's Kay. She can call her Kay. Everyone calls her that. Coco accuses Kay of stalking her, but Kay says that Coco started stalking her first. Coco moves on, saying the man is dead, so what's her plan? But Kay tells her that it actually works out better for her. Coco wanted to talk with the husband, only to find out he was already dead. She didn't believe the wife's death was an accident. Kay begins to speak to the corpse, sewing her thoughts into his. He made his pregnant wife die. Why was he only able to act in that way? If he were a bigger man, if only he could have thought more of his wife. The reason she canceled the hospital in Tokyo and decided to give birth at her parents' house was... The corpse finishes the sentence. That fatty's child is not his. Coco gags and Kay tells her not to throw up. She doesn't want to do extra work, and This is met with nodding. The corpse continues. He had a vague feeling that the calculations didn't add up. That's why he confronted her. He insisted on a DNA test for the child, and she confessed. Until the end, his wife never mentioned the name of the other person. It was a student from the school. His wife had been cheating. He was the second one. When the marriage was decided, she decided to cut ties with the student. The student threatened her, saying that if she was going to have his child, he would separate from her. Probably, his wife liked the student more than him. He was only thinking about saving face, before and after the marriage, before and after her death. That's right. A male student jumped off and committed suicide at school. When he found out, she was completely broken. That's when he said the thing he vaguely suspected. Coco has a realization. Yanagita. Kei turns to her and says, "That's right. They are still on top of the spider's web." Ayanosuke drives his hearse down the road with the casket and Tsunami in tow. Tsunami asks if he knows the folklore about the Zashiki Warashi from the Tohoku region, to which he responds, yes, if it's the one from Tono Monogatari. Living with a Zashiki Warashi brings prosperity, but the moment he's gone, misfortune strikes. That's about all he knows, and Tsunami begins his version. Long ago, there was a child born into a noble family in Tohoku, known as a prodigy. Before they could even speak properly, they had read all the books in the house. By the age of 5, they were also reading Western books in their original languages. Everyone had high hopes for the child's future, but the child's physical growth stopped at the age of 7. The parents did everything they could, spending all they had, but the child knew it was hopeless. Before becoming an adult, they locked themselves in a room. Following the family's traditions, the child was declared dead. As years passed, when the mother who cared for the child fell ill, strange things began happening in the house. At times, the child's figure would vanish from the Zashiki prison. First, the father's mistress died. Then, for a while, similar strange phenomena continued outside the house. The people who died were all considered nuisances to the household, especially to the mother. As a result, the house prospered greatly, but the ailing mother passed away. The child disappeared from the Zashiki prison, as if following her, and was never seen again. The house rapidly fell into ruin, and the family was scattered. This became the prototype for the Zashiki Warashi legend. This is the folklore of the Zashiki Warashi. After that, the Zashiki Warashi would find old houses with Zashiki prisons and settle there. He brought prosperity to the house, but in return, took the family's daughter as his bride. He stayed until she passed away. Nearly every girl became mentally and physically ill and passed away young. While the Zashiki Warashi was in the house truly prospered. The family sheltered and hid the Zashiki Warashi, ensuring its existence was never revealed to outsiders. For a long time, all Tsunami saw were the ruins of houses after the Zashiki Warashi had left, and finally, they were able to track him down and corner him. Ayanosuke interrupts to say, "An abandoned school, is that right?" And Tsunami confirms, Zashiki prisons are no longer built in modern houses, so he changed the hunting ground to schools. Back then, schools had rooms for janitors to live in, and that's where he moved in. And that's where he messed up, marrying 2 girls in the same place. During this conversation, we are shown that inside the coffin in the hearse is Eru, resting happily and cradling a familiar box. Tsunami continues that there were mummified schoolgirls lined up in the janitor's room. No matter how much the school prospered, it meant nothing to the girls' parents. Ayanosuke says that it must have known Tsunami would come here. It's a trap, isn't it? And Tsunami casually responds, most likely. With a serious face, Ayanosuke says he won't repeat the kind of failure that happened at Coco's school. And with a grin, Tsunami says he's looking forward to it. Shall they go? The two stride towards the entrance of what is indeed an abandoned school. The Zashiki Warashi, a young boy in rather modern clothes, is there to greet them with a smile, saying it's been a while. He was worried that Tsunami might have been killed by some small fry and replaced. As expected of the strongest Oni Slayer in history, it's good to see he hasn't changed. Ionosuke is surprised, exclaiming in excitement that, "This is the Zashiki Warashi?" The young boy says it's just a nickname, though. After 10 months of floating in his mother's belly, he already knew the world wasn't going to be kind. Guess that's what you call an early education. Unamused, Tsunami says that the boy is still as vile and filthy as ever. He makes his skin crawl. Imawami, Chiyomaru. The boy smiles. Oh no, how scary, so scary. If he were a stupid, short-tempered brute with horns, he'd charge in and get turned to ash right away. Tsunami has a sharp tongue, so Imawami has to be careful. Taking this as a challenge, Tsunami continues to insult. A long time ago, a short-tempered little Oni lacking strength charged in and he turned it to ash. What did that fool say again? Ionosuke tries to warn Tsunami that the longer he talks, the more danger of getting caught in spells increases, but Imawami says with a yell as his face transforms that it's already too late. Tsunami can keep that wheel running in his mouse cage for eternity. There's a flashback to the barrier at Koko's school, when Izumi pointed to his desk. And here, Tsunami says something different than what we saw at the time. A symbol appears on the back of his hand, and he says, "I see. This is your grave." Imawami kicks a board on the floor, flipping it up just in time to block the ignition of an ember, and he tries to run, but Ionosuke opens his palms and flings them out, throwing symbols which strike the walls around the door, creating a spiritual seal preventing Imawami from crashing through the window as he bounces off of it. Tsunami goes for another attack, but behind him he notices something. Katana appears and comes in for a slash, which Tsunami leaps over. Imawami is not happy to see him, saying it was foolish and to leave him be, but Katana says that Imawami said it himself. A turn will be taken by someone other than him, but Imawami responds that it's just his turn has finally come, isn't it? Imawami transforms into a kind of mirror image of Tsunami and sighs, saying, just when it thought it could finally die in peace. It doesn't care if Katana is gay or not, it will definitely make him take responsibility. Katana says that with this, he has repaid debts to both sides. Togen Tsunami, Kagami Hime. A small note on Kagami Hime. We don't have any previous experience with this character, not that you know of yet, but Kagami can mean mirror, and Hime can mean princess, meaning this is a mirror princess. And well, I think you will find that this is a rather apt description, actually. However, more than this is a surprise. Imawami is outside clapping with a smile, saying, well done. It's tough when they both have foolish companions, isn't it? Behind Imawami towers a massive golem made of little Oni, and in front of it, it carries Eru, being held in the broad sunlight. Eru apologizes and Ionosuke loses his cool, charging towards Imawami, as Tsunami calls him a fool, telling him to wait. Ionosuke is blasted back by his own barrier, and as he recovers, he asks Tsunami if he just called him an idiot, but Tsunami says he misheard. Besides, there must be at least 1,000 little Oni in that giant. It seems they underestimated Imawami. He governs the grudges of 1,000 people, guiding thousands of people to possess. His existence transcends even that of a demon. The fact that Eru was captured means... Kagami Hime calls Katana a fool, saying if he dies here, he won't be able to avenge his brother. He's going to kill Okido, right? And Katana responds that as long as they don't die here, both of them. Outside, Imawami laughs at them. The stupid glasses guy went so far as to lock the door for them. They won't be able to get out with just a little push. Now they're going to play a game using the jar. Imawami holds up a very familiar jar, the jar of observation, the jar of the Wakimi family, and he addresses the group, Tsunami, fake Tsunami, stupid glasses, and stupid Katana. Are they all ready? He got the jar from the hornless girl, She held it tightly to her chest until she passed out. The jar is what makes the Wakimi family who they are. Tsunami apologizes, but Ayanosuke says that he is the head of the Wakimi family, and as long as he is there, the responsibility lies with him. Right now, he needs to leave as quickly as possible and save Ernestine. She should have been able to leave and abandon the jar, even if it meant Ayanosuke putting his life on the line. As Eru dangles in the air, her feet begin to sizzle. Katana questions what the jar is, and Kagami Hime actually explains that it wasn't supposed to concern them weaklings, but she guesses it does. To put it simply, it's a magical jar that seals demons. It's a secret technique passed down through the generations of the Wakimi family. The practitioner sacrifices their eyes, ears, and mouth to create a hole in the jar. That's why one person can only create 3 in their lifetime. The hole in the jar connects to the land of roots, and the souls that enter are said to be removed from the cycle of reincarnation. The only one who's gone to the land of roots and returned is Okuninushi, so no one really knows the truth. As long as it works, who cares about the reasoning? Side note, there is a lot of lore behind Okuninushi, but the basic gist is that he is the head of the gods of Earth. Additionally, the Land of Roots is sometimes referred to as the Land of Reeds. There are different translations. Kagami Hime continues that there's no reincarnation or anything. Humans and demons are no different from plants. They are weaklings who die, and it's all gone. No traces, no memories. Demons that live long enough, their impurities harden. Even if exorcists burn them, they reincarnate as they are. So, they burn the body, catch them when they return to their physical form, and trap them. Imawami yells that fake Tsunami's explanation is far too long. She's acting all young, but hasn't her impurity already hardened long ago? He calls her an old hag and tells her not to get in the way. Kagami Hime yells back that Imawami's done for. Once they are out of there, they'll definitely kill him. She then turns a puppy dog face to Katana and says that Imawami's exaggerating. She's only a little older than him. It's true, please believe her. He says he's not really concerned. He believes her, so can she please move away? It seems that Katana has a crush on Tsunami because he remarks on Kagami Hime's face, and she clings to him, saying that if that's what he wants, she'll stay like that forever. As Tsunami and Ayanosuke watch in confusion, and Ayanosuke just says, "Tsunami, let's get out of here as soon as possible." Imawami demands their attention once again. He is going to explain the rules. Because of the stupid glasses guy, the barrier cannot be broken in 1 or 2 hours. However, the hornless girl probably won't be able to endure even a moment. He'll place the jar at the opening, and the moment he tears Eru's hair off, the game begins. It's impressive that she's still holding her shape without turning to ash. She must have been bitten by a very strong Oni. But still, if her hair is torn off and her head is exposed, will her skin regenerate in time? Will she succumb to the sunlight and turn to ash, or will she endure until the sun sets? That's the key point of the game. Ayanosuke is confused, but Tsunami explains. Instead of a hat or clothes, Eru uses her hair to cover herself from the sunlight. Hair is also a part of her body. Normally, if exposed to sunlight, it would burn and turn to ash. But that's not her hair. It's her mother's hair. Imawami continues that the fastest way to open the barrier is to kill the Oni inside the barrier and let it absorb into the jar. At that time, a hole will open in the barrier where the Oni passed through, and the barrier will be undone and opened from there. In other words, Tsunami and the glasses just need to kill the fake Tsunami or Sword Idiot. On the other hand, fake Tsunami and Sword Idiot only need to endure until the hornless girl burns out and gets absorbed into the jar. As a backdoor, they could just try killing Tsunami. Surprisingly, he might just get smoothly absorbed into the jar. With the rules explained, Imawami yells for the golem to tear the hair off of Eru, and in a flash, it does, revealing that, underneath, Eru has short hair. Kagami Hime yells for Katana to not give Glasses a chance to use sorcery. She will restrain Tsunami. And on the other side, Ayanosuke asks Tsunami how Ernestine is doing, and he informs him that once the regeneration of her skin can no longer keep up with the charring, her entire body will ignite. 5 or 10 minutes. It won't last much longer either way. Once the body starts to carbonize, she will likely turn to ash in seconds. The battle begins, and as it does, Tsunami ponders if this was all part of Imawami's plan. Did he let him kill them on purpose for this moment, them being the Oni at the school? In the afterlife, he wove the threads of thousands of fates, setting a spider's web of traps in this world. Was he pretending to make a mistake to lure Tsunami here? Maybe they can't defeat him. Maybe they've already lost. The two Tsunamis cast their embers, and fire erupts between them. Katana swings his sword at Ayanosuke, who blocks it with his wrist, having a spell on his palm enchanting his flesh. Outside, the sun beats down as Eru grits her teeth in pain, her flesh sizzling and flaking. The two Tsunamis cast their embers once more. The fake one is confident. With a wave of its hand, it surprises Tsunami. Did it change the direction of the spark? He dodges the incoming bursts on the floor. Does the mirror reflect more than just appearances? Fake Tsunami plants a hand on the floor and smiles as more embers erupt, closing in on the real Tsunami and eventually exploding behind him. Can it copy techniques that haven't been shown? Tsunami never imagined Kagami Hime could be something like this. Moment by moment, Eru is doing worse. Her skin is beginning to crumble. Ayanosuke tells Katana that the Tsunamis won't finish their fight anytime soon. He holds no grudge against him, but he will die. Inside, though, Ayanosuke is calculating the battle. He believes that Katana knows that his enchantment only had enough leeway to be applied to his arm. So, the next sword strike will be low. Believing he has the upper hand, Ayanosuke leaps for his next strike as Katana swings underneath him. However, Katana was prepared. It was a feint. He tackles Ayanosuke to the ground and prepares for the final cut, but Ayanosuke is still able to use his arm to deflect the sword into the floor. The two now grapple, with Ayanosuke's arm in a hold and Katana on the mount. He taunts. He doesn't hold a grudge either, but he doesn't plan to die here. But Ayanosuke tells him he will die, and manages to reverse their positions, turning the hold into a toss. Now Ayanosuke has the mount. He punches hard, striking the floor and breaking the board beneath Katana as he guards and moves his head. Ayanosuke accuses him of believing he was merely a sorcerer, and he saw Katana as only a swordsman. It seems the both of them underestimated each other, but his steel fist will crush Katana's arm and skull. He can't keep dodging forever. Ayanosuke then prepares for a final strike, but is interrupted by laughter. All combat stops as Imawami yells that time is up. The hands of the Oni that comprise the golem release Ernestine, and her body, completely engulfed in flames, plummets. While Ayanosuke is distracted by this sight, Katana grabs his sword and swings. It is revealed that under Ayanosuke's hair there is a circle drawn, and before the moment of impact, he chants an incantation. A horn on the forehead. The horn is... Tsunami breaks through the glass to the outside as Ayanosuke is decapitated. The fire sorcerer manages to catch Eru's flaming body and wraps her tight in his cloak, shielding her from the sun and smothering the fire. She protests weakly, saying he'll get burned too, but he tells her not to speak. Only focus on regenerating her body for now. It's not too late. They'll make it. The golem sprouts wings and carries away Imawami as he taunts Tsunami and flies over the mountains. Behind Tsunami, the jar rattles. Katana sheaths his sword, and Kagami Hime reveals her true form, the girl who shared the liver with him at the beginning of the chapter. With a smile, saying they should get out of there while they can, but Katana is staring at the ground. He says it looks like Ayanosuke planned to do this all along, right from the start. Kagami Hime questions this. The head of the Wakimi family doing all this for a little hornless girl? Were they secretly dating or what? There is something strange about Ayanosuke's body on the floor, and Kagami Hime takes notice. It's more than just strange. It's staining the floor, and it looks black, but the blood... She touches it. It's translucent and slimy. She picks up Ayanosuke's head, and it's melting. She's not a fan of this. Tsunami sets Eru down on the step underneath the shade of a building. Tsunami sets Eru down on the step of a building underneath an awning in the shade, wrapped in his cloak, and he tells her she's okay. He puts her hair on her and tells her it doesn't seem damaged. She thanks him, and he says he'll go get the car. Still weak, she asks, "Where is Ionosuke?" Tsunami remains silent. Eru looks at him and weakly only says his name to question him. And then, a tiny little voice can be heard. "Tsunami-chin! Tsunami-chin! Ernestine, are you okay? Tsunami-chin!" And I really think you have to see the transition of panels to appreciate the facial expression changes for this. Tsunami picks up the jar, and a tiny little Ionosuke greets him from inside. He then leaves the jar on the ground and says he'll go get the car. And that is the end.